Okay, so it's not a big surprise that I'm a massive fan of Edgar Wright's films, where I literally made a video about the director that was published on my channel for an old college project in March 2021. Well, I'll specifically be looking into one of his films on the channel today, that for once is not Scott Pilgrim, and that is Baby Driver. Thanks to my friends, I got to rewatch this brilliant film, so let's just get right into it. Baby Driver is a 2017 action film written and directed by Wright. Eric Fellner and his partner, Tim Bevan, produced the film in association with Nira Parks. Sony and TriStar Pictures would have handled commercial distribution of the film as well. The film follows Baby, who's a music-loving orphan that also happens to be a talented getaway driver for a heist mastermind named Doc. Essentially, Baby chooses the right song and then drives Doc's croonies away from the police. However, this is something that he doesn't really want to do. Hoping to do one last job before he gets away with his new love named Deborah, although that is easier said than done. Baby is played by Ansel Elgort, Doc is played by Kevin Spacey, Deborah is played by Lily James, Doc's cronies are Buddy and Darlin, played by John Hamm and Zaya Gonzalez, who are a couple who use their money that they keep having romantic getaways then going back to the jobs. Jamie Foxx, who plays Bats, who's essentially a wildcard who kills everyone who looks at him the wrong way. John Berenfeld plays Griff, who had one job with Baby, who essentially just teases him a bit like Bats really. And moving away from the thug life, we have CJ Jones, who plays Joe, who is Baby's foster father, who is a nice old man who is deaf and encourages Baby to get away from the life of crime. Now let's have a look into how this film came to be. This was a long-time passion project for Wright, all the way back since 1995. This is while he was a struggling 21-year-old filmmaker living in London. He had recently relocated there to finish the first professional film which he was working on, which was a low-budget western comedy named A Fistful of Fingers. The director would repeatedly listen to Orange, which was the fourth studio album by John Spencer Blue, Explosion, and envisioned a high-speed car chase would evolve into the first car chase in the final film. He would then find himself developing the music video for Mint Royal's Blue Song in 2003 on a £25,000 budget, which he would incorporate his early concept of the opening scene into. The music video would go on to be an unexpected hit, and Wright was happy with his work but potentially felt like he wasted a brilliant idea. The director, however, moved forward and made his first big hit film, which was Shaun of the Dead from 2004. That ended up making him start working with some producers, who would then end up assisting him on this film. By 2007, he would then sign a multi-picture deal with his producer's company named Working Title, and with a more clever vision for it, he met with Stephen Price to discuss early musical ideas for Baby Driver. The drafting of story for the film would then begin around the release of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World in 2010. However, no real work would start due to the director having other projects such as The World's End and, at the time, Ant-Man. Although after his departure from the MCU film, he then resumed work on this film immediately. Himself, lead film editor Paul Matchless and LA-based editor Evan Schiff devised a pre-edit of the project, which was made with animatics during the initial stages of production. LA was originally going to be the film's setting but proved to be expensive. The studio would tour around cities that offered generous tax credits for the film's production, which included Atlanta, which ended up being the frontrunner during scouting. The director would go on to spend a week in the city observing the local scenery and culture to make necessary revisions for the script. The film would end up lasting 4 months from February 2016 to May 2016, which mainly took place in the central business district. Wright looked at Vanishing Point, American Graffiti, The Driver, Point Break, Reservoir Dogs, and Heat as significant influences on the film's visual and creative direction. To make the aesthetic come to life, the production's main goal was to produce the film using practical filmmaking techniques. Bill Pope would go on to be director of photography of this film, making him do this job for Wright for the third time, and he shot this project mostly on anamorphic format on a 35mm film, using Kodak film stock. A few visual effects ended up being used in the film with the London-based studio DNEG, with the supervision of Stuart Lashley and Sherlyn Swaka, creating most of the visual effects that were needed for the film. All the work was made of 430 shots in the film, which were created of a team of 120 artists. Their work began while viewing the early animatics of the film. The studio used Nuke to animate car chase scenes that would not be rendered with in-camera effects. Mentioning car scenes, it was second unit director Darren Prescott who coordinated the stunts for the film, with Jeremy Fry who was the stunt driver and a team of other professionals. Rehearsals took place at Atlanta Motor Speedway before they received clearance to shoot in the city. During these rehearsals, filmmakers would capture stunts. This is where Matchless would then edit that footage into the updated animatics, fleshing out the precision of the stunts in time for shooting. Ryan Heaventon oversaw the choreography of the film, being responsible for synchronizing the movement of the actors and stunt performers in the sequences. This was actually the first film he worked on, after being best known in the music industry with music videos, working with artists like Sia, Arcade Fire and more. Heck, he wasn't even experienced with Wright's work, where he was just compelled by the script. He also had some luck with some sequences where less taxing, because Elgar and Fox had prior dancing experience. Julian Slater was the sound editing supervisor, and when they were first approached for the film, they were sent a copy of the script and a PDF file which contained the selection of the music, along with a rough audio mix. They would go on to work closely with the music editor Bradley Farmer, and divided each musical cue into a unique tempo map, which allowed for synchronization at any given time. The audio department actually spent 8 days recording car sound effects at Atlanta Motor Speedway, to make on-board recordings, which are essentially sounds heard from the perspective of the driver and passengers. Sound effects recordist Watson Wu installed about 6 microphones in each vehicle, 1 in the airbox, 1 in the radio dashboard, 2 near the exhaust, and then 2 in the engine department. Boom operator James Peterson also followed each car with a shotgun mic for external recordings. The crew would go on to pre-mix the audio at Twin Bam Studios in London, and the final mixing would go on to take place at Goldcrest Film, which is a Soho post-production facility. Moving from sound to music, both Wright and Price exchanged ideas throughout pre-production, overall selecting 10 tracks to shape the project's musical direction. Danger Mouse and Kid Koala ended up being the ones to compose original tracks for the album, which were Chase Me and Was He Slow. For the second song, it uses samples of Spacey and Bernfeld's dialogue, where Koala produced the song using analog equipment. 30th Century Recordings, which is a Columbia imprint, released the film's soundtrack on June 23, 2017 on vinyl and CD. A follow-up album which included previous unreleased content named Baby Driver Volume 2, The Score for a Score, was released on April 13, 2018. Like the rest of Wright's films, this uses strong colour cues, where they are really used to symbolically represent the personas of the core characters. For example, at the start, Baby dresses in drab colours that reflect on his black and white perspective of the universe, whilst his peers are associated with bright, vibrant colours that clash with his style. We have red for Bats, purple/pink for Darlin, and blue for Buddy. However, as the story progresses, his wardrobe also progresses with him, where he is now seen in greys and white shirts. Costume designer Courtney Hoffman has actually said that she incorporated light grey colours into the character's wardrobe to illustrate his struggle for freedom from the criminal world. The significance of red also takes over a lot later on in the film, to symbolise how bloodthirsty Bats is, then to also show Buddy's rage when his death of his love happens in the film. Finally, in this segment, let's have a look into the actor's perspective of this film and a little bit of how they were hired. For Elgar as Baby, Wright with the producers at Work and Title Films began thinking of a lead well before getting funding for this film. Overall, Elgar along with John Boyega and Logan Lerman were among the potential candidates for this role. Elgar auditioned for the role because he found the screenplay brilliant, where he went on to audition several times, but was hired based on a tape audition where he lip-synced and danced to the 1977 song Easy. Overall, the director was so impressed that he added the song to the film's soundtrack. Emma Stone was actually an early thought for Deborah during development, but the role ultimately went to Lily. For the character of Buddy, the director envisioned a strong, handsome character like Steve McQueen in The Getaway or George Clooney in Out of Sight. Ham is the only actor who was actually thought of specifically when their character was written, since he is friends with Wright. The actor even went on to take part in a table read for the film several years before the film was even commissioned by the studio. Fox would be a casting choice recommended to Wright, with him finding out the actor had other reservations and felt he wouldn't be enthusiastic about doing a supporting role. However, by surprise, Fox was fascinated with the film's artistic direction, and he joined the project thanks to the support of Quentin Tarantino, who is friends with Wright too. Overall, he modelled Bats after a long-time friend he met at an LA comedy club when he was younger. Then finally, to prepare for his role, Bernthal consulted with real-life criminals to get a better grasp on his character and the inner workings of organised crime. Marketing campaign TriStar was in charge. The strategy included aggressive social media management, a worldwide publicity tour, and a number of colourful vintage-style character posters. The film would go on to premiere at the South by Southwest Festival on March 11, 2017. Both TriStar and Stoney initially scheduled for a mid-August release for the film in America and the UK. But with an unusual move, they released the film up by 6 weeks for a date of June 28th, after how well the response was at film festivals. Sony would then release the film digitally on September 12, 2017, and then on disc on October 10th. During its first week on sale in the US, the film ended up being the second best film on disc with 226,657 units sold for $5.6 million. The film was a financial success overall. It did, yes, fail in China, but did exceptionally well in America and Europe. It made $107.8 million in the US, and then made $119.1 million everywhere else, which overall made them $226.9 million. This isn't a major film success of 2017, but was successful, being Wright's highest grossing film. It was also a hit critically, with Rotten Tomatoes giving it a 92% based on 395 reviews, and Metacritic giving it an 86 out of 100 based on 53 reviews. The film would go on to be nominated for 51 awards and winning 40. This overall credited for its editing, music, production design, action, locations, and camera work. There's also a possibility of a sequel, with the studio definitely being on board for one. Discussions then begun from December 2017 as Wright announced his intent to develop a script. He then began work on it by January 2019, which apparently introduced a set of new characters. That July he then showed Elgar a copy of the script, and by January 2021 the director has confirmed he has completed a script, but hey, who knows what could happen in the future. This to me is such an entertainment, slick and stylish film, which is probably my favourite car movie too. The opening 20 minutes are just phenomenal, where it just shows how brilliant of a director Wright is. Parts are cliches, but the director also certainly shows where he gets these cliches from, or uses them to flip them on their head. The cast is also so talented, to which includes Elgar, Spacey, James, Hamm and Fox. Yes, definitely one, maybe two of these people aren't good, but hey, they were good actors in this film. Baby is such a brilliant protagonist to me. I love his mystery he provides when he's on the job listening to his music. Being silent, looking down with the 3 pairs of sunglasses he carries on him. I love how he matches his music to the driving where it makes you feel like you're in the car with him, and how he remixes memorable quotes he hears from him day by day too. His backstory is something I could also relate to. Makes me thankful that my mother survived the crash I was personally in when I was younger. People also judge his relationship with Deborah and call it the weakest part of the film, but I feel like it was done beautifully. She reminds him of something that he lost and also made sure to make him happy, making him believe in his dreams. This is just a phenomenal heist film, with a brilliant soundtrack too. For sure a 5 out of 5 or a 10 out of 10. So guys, that was me once again covering another piece of Wright's work. Honestly, I pretty much love all his films, and I kind of have a unique take as well. People love the Cornetto trilogy, and I for sure do still as a British person. They're still brilliant films, but I do much prefer Wright's later work as he progresses, because I feel like his American work can handle characters a lot better. I know that there's a lot of character progression in films like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, etc., but you really feel it in films like Scott Pilgrim, Baby Driver, and especially as well Last Night in Soho, which I definitely should cover along with the Cornetto trilogy one day on the channel. But hey, what was your thoughts on this film, guys, and have you got any additional facts about it? Please comment down below, I'd really love to hear it. Also like the video if you did like, and subscribe if you've been seeing the content for a while and have been enjoying it, because it'll mean a lot as a small content creator. Also, definitely if you want to see a video in the future which covers Last Night in Soho or the Cornetto trilogy, let me know definitely, I will cover them one day if you want to see it. And yeah, that's all I have to really say really. Baby Driver is a film that I've loved for years now, and yeah, I'll see you with whatever I cover next.